If you are a parent of children and you're trying to watch this video to gauge if this is something you'd want to do, I would encourage them to just know that this is the time to be hands on with your children right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Gretchen Rowe for the Demi Learning Show, and I am so excited to welcome the Dawson family today to talk to you all about a little bit of world schooling. They had the privilege to visit Brazil this spring, and it was such an amazing experience. I got the privilege to meet them at a homeschool conference just before they were going to start, and I was so excited. Before they even left, I said, "Would you guys come on this show and talk to me about your experiences?" Because I think this is going to be a really particularly special conversation. And I'm very privileged to have their daughters with us too, because they got to experience the joy of this. Thank you all for welcoming us into your living room. And Sarah, I'm going to let you take it away and introduce yourselves.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having our family. We're privileged to be able to sit here and talk with you today. We are very happy that we had this experience and we look forward to many more. This is Kenzie right here, and this is Emma. And as you mentioned, I am Sarah Dawson, and we are a homeschool family. We are on our third year, and we also do construction. And our girls have been with us through the whole process with work. They're always constantly with us. Even when they were infants, we had them with the little pack and play on the job site. So we've always been big into hands on and learning everything from a real life perspective, not just out of a textbook. Which it was natural when we were invited to go to Brazil and we had the opportunity to be able to go to a private school. We jumped all over it.
I think that's pretty cool. Sometimes, as parents, we're hesitant to do those kinds of new experiences with our children because we don't know what it's going to be like. And so you guys were really brave to do this without having all of the answers, just to sort of trust and go forward. So tell me a little bit about that. How did you all first conceive of this idea of, yeah, we can go to Brazil. It'll be all right.
First, to set the grounds, we are really big on exploring. We try to go hiking at least once a week with the girls. It's kind of our mental reset. We get away from anything. We kind of leave the phones aside and we venture out. So we try to go within 3 hours of where we live, and we go to any type of museum or any other places that they offer. If you just do some research and dig around, there's a lot of opportunities for homeschooling families where they do homeschooling days, and we just jump all over any opportunity that we are able to get. And so we're always hands-on and exploring. And then my husband and I, we went to Europe a few years back, and the girls were with their grandparents, and we backpacked for 7 weeks for 3 weeks through 7 countries. And we really enjoyed the experience, and we said, we would really like the girls to be able to experience the way that we're experiencing other cultures. We think it's important to know that there's more than just beyond the way our culture is. And it's also important to know that not everyone has the different privileges that we have in America. And I think it helps us to be better citizens and understand, and appreciate what different politicians tend to try to fight for, that we try to fight for our freedom, and you really can't grasp it unless you see the other side. So
Very true.
yeah, and so when you can read things, you can watch things, but till you actually experience it hands on,
Right.
it's a whole new viewpoint. And so we have a friend that lives in Brazil, and he's been inviting us to go for over 10 years, and we've always kind of put it off. And we finally said to him in December that we were going to make the jump and go. He has 3 children as well, and we said that we would go ahead and we would visit him. And so while we, were doing our planning stages, we talked about how his kids go to a private school there, and we talked about that the kids were homeschooled and we'd love the opportunity for them to see how kids learn there. And so we started coordinating and asking permission with the private school if we could enroll the girls for a week while we were there. We went for a little over 4 weeks and we enrolled them for a week of our stay there so we could spend the other time doing other explorations. And we were really pleased when they agreed and we went through the process to enroll them. And so that started getting the wheels turning to do our visit that we did.
You know what surprised me more than anything else is that you found another country that was so willing to embrace your daughters and welcome them into a different environment for a week. Where in America would we do that? I mean, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know, you know?
So there's like two sides of it. So one side is the more you travel, the more you see that we're all the same. And if we could all just sit down at the table and share a meal, I think the world would be a better place.
Amen.
We all love each other and we all want to invite and embrace each other, but there are some regulations set up that make certain things harder. I do think that, now we didn't enter into a public school. Okay, so
Sure.
public schools, even in America, would be hard because you to get into for temporary for a week here would not happen. But, when it's private, you pay to enter. And so here in America, I think if someone were to do some digging around, they'd be surprised that more people would probably be more welcoming than you would expect. We did need to submit and make sure that we have, proper documentation. We did have to submit the passports and we did need to submit like the vaccination record. So we did need to submit things prior to even arriving into Brazil for them to be accepted into the school. I go back and forth. I feel like we have a lot more regulation here than they do in Brazil, but I think people would be surprised how welcoming other places are.
When we were talking, getting ready to start today, I found that growing up, my husband and I lived overseas for 4.5 years, and we spent every dollar we made because we were visiting.
Right.
We visited 11 different foreign countries while we were there,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have traded that for anything.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be in and amongst the regular folks. We would wander around until we found a little hole in the wall restaurant, and then we would
Right.
wander in. And that was how we got to learn about different cultures and communities, and it was amazing. And I think you all did a little bit of that. You told me when we first talked about this some stories. So, will you share some of those experiences, especially
I
the one about
will.
the family you fell in love with so much?
Yes, yes, they we joke that's our new grandma and grandpa. We didn't go to your typical tourist places. We feel that if you really want to embrace the true culture and experience, you've got to step away from the facade that some of the places will put on. If you really truly want to have the true experience and a more affordable experience, you need to do further research on where to go. You'd be surprised you can actually go further with your funds on the options of what to do if you just step away from where the tourism is. We took a boat through the jungle and the girls were able to like jump off of the roof of the boat and we had the guy that led the boat, he did like a Brazilian barbecue on the boat for us, and so that was a really cool experience driving through the jungle in the boat, just guiding through. And then we also did a private tour with a guide. He spoke no English, so it was a little bit tough, but we did have a friend there that was able to help us with translating. And we went through the rainforest and he took us to a special part where led us to a big open beach. And that area was an area that up until a handful of years ago, you couldn't step grounds unless you were there to do different studies. It was an area that they did different studies and they finally opened it up to the public. So that was really special. We stayed with our friend for a period of the time. And when we stayed with our friend there, they have some live-in servants because the lifestyle there is a lot of people use servants there, which would be more costly and more difficult to do in America. But they have the servants there. And so the girls learned different types of cooking, and we learned how they wash their clothes and how they don't really have, dishwashers, and they don't have dryers, and the way, the way you're supposed to hang things. And they taught us how we purchase groceries, and they don't have the sanitary that we have, unfortunately. So we learned how you go to the markets and you purchase your fruits, and you need to soak them for 2 hours so that you can make sure that everything has come out of them and that there's not any pest in them. And then once they're soaked, then you rinse them, and then you can leave them out to dry before you eat them. How you purchase the meats in the meat markets. And so we just learned a lot of the different hands-on things with that. When we ventured away from our friend, we started doing some exploring, and we found ourselves immersed in a place called Cunha, and it's in the mountains. And it was the most magical part of our trip. And we did some research while we were driving through, fell in love with it, never intended to stay there. We thought, oh, let's not go visit the mountains. We live in the mountains. And we just fell in love with it driving through. We pulled over, did some research, and we said we should stay here. And so we looked at some reviews, and we found a place that had 4 cottages. And we called them and asked if they had a room for 3 nights, and they said they did. And we got there, and we didn't realize that it would be cold in the mountains. We thought, "Oh, Brazil, everything's warm."
Oh,
And
goodness.
so we only had packed with us some warm clothing.
Sure, because you were there in the middle of summer.
Yeah, and we thought, "Oh, we're getting, everything's great. We don't need to bring anything warm." We didn't even have jackets. And we showed up, and he looked at us and he says, "Aren't you guys cold?" And at first we were confused because he was speaking English to us, and almost everybody there doesn't speak English. Turns out he had worked with an American company. He was retired and opened these little chalets, they call them. And so he, for luckily for us, was bilingual. And he says, "Let me go get some clothing for you," was how it started, which was an amazing welcome. And we were very cold. So he found a suitcase with a couple of things. Nothing fit us, but we put on these clothes. And he says, "It's late now. Why don't you guys come into our little clubhouse area?" And started feeding us all these foods. And the foods were so good. And we thought, "Well, wow, where do these foods come from?" And he says, "Oh, my wife bakes and makes all of this." And we thought, "Wow, this is amazing. We need to meet her." So we go into the kitchen, and that was the end. The girls met her, and she started hugging them. And she says, "Come back tomorrow and I'll teach you how to bake and cook." And the girls ended up cooking with her and learning how to do the measurements and learning how to bake. And everything was from scratch. Everything was from the local farm, either that they had on their grounds or from another local farmer. And they said, "What are you gonna do while you're staying in Cunha? Because it's a small little country town. There's not a whole lot to do." And we said, "We don't know, but we just fell in love." And he says, "Well, I'll take you and teach you how. Have you girls been on horseback?" And they said, "No." And he took them and taught them how to go on horseback, and took them through the fields to ride horses. And he says, "I want to teach you our grounds," and took us on a trail and showed us all the different trees and showed us the gardens, and was teaching us about all the little local fruits. And every single morning we woke up and the entire table was covered with gourmet food. We ended up doing 2 trips for 3 days each to them while we were there. We fell in love. We went back a second time. And we counted, and she baked 26 different goods for us during those 6 days, all from scratch. And she would stay up all night long baking. And one of the nights that we were there, the girls said, um, they said, "Well, where are you gonna go for dinner tonight?" And the girls said, "We want to eat with you guys." And they said, "Well," they were a little taken back because they don't normally have the guests that want to spend time with them. And they said, "Well, where do you want to eat?" And the girls said, we want to cook with you. And they said, oh, and they weren't expecting that. And we ended up gathering together. The girls said they wanted to teach her how to make gnocchi. And she said, oh, you could teach me, wink, wink. And so she got together and they put on this gourmet meal. And my husband and I, Sam, we weren't allowed in the kitchen. They said we need to go and walk the grounds and enjoy ourselves and have a cup of wine, a glass of wine. And so we walked the grounds and we came back and they had the table set up and the girls with this lady, her name's Fatima, they set up the table with everything that they made from scratch. And we had the bottle of wine there and we had all the different local foods and the fruits and all the baked goods that she made. And we sat there with these two hosts and and she only spoke, part English from her husband teaching her, but not much. And even with language barriers, we just sat and embraced the moment and laughed and enjoyed and went out and stared at the sky. It was beautiful and just really soaked in the entire experience of them having us welcome into their home essentially and nurturing us the way that they did, and it was really special.
So, Sarah, one of the things as a mom that comes to mind, my kids will eat anything. They were raised on a variety of different foods, and they don't have cheap food tastes. I'll put it that way. But how do you, as a mom, teach your girls to be willing to try different things? Because I know friends who have children who would no more go to another country and want to eat anywhere but McDonald's, even in a foreign country. So, how did you encourage the girls to do this, to be brave?
So to keep it short and to maybe give some encouragement to some other parents and families that are not as willing to try other foods, uh, when my girls were really, really little, one would want to eat like chicken nuggets, the other one would want to eat mac and cheese, and they wouldn't want to eat anything else. And they were probably like 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, somewhere along those lines. And I would make food for each of them. They'd sit at their little kid table, and then I'd make a full meal for my husband and I. And I came home one day and I said, "I'm not a short-end cook anymore. We're all gonna eat what I cook." And they all just kind of looked at me like, "What? What's going on?" And I said, "Today's the day." And I would make one thing for our whole family, and I would put it in dishes in the center, and we'd all sit at the adult table now, and I would let them serve themselves rather than serving them so that they're serving themselves. And I didn't care if they wanted to eat it, the rule was you have to try it. And they say statistically that after you try something about 10 times, your taste buds start to remember it and you start to kind of like it. So if you don't like it the first time, you should really continue to give it a try is the long thing to remember with that. And so the first couple months I remember they would throw their fits, they'd get upset and they'd maybe eat more of one thing than the other. And then as they would continue to try and try and try, they began to like, and I brought them into the kitchen and I said, "You're going to help me to cook." And you'd be surprised that when they go through all the hard work of cooking something and they put that effort in,
Exactly.
that they want to eat what they put their hard work into, they want to be able to try it. So I would have them involved. So to this day, the girls have that once a week, unless we're extremely busy, the girls cook dinner for us. I will go in and assist if they need help with certain things, or if they can't remember something, or if they need help with opening or cutting something. But they will pick out what the meal is when we're making our grocery list, and they will talk amongst themselves, and they will decide between each other, and then they will have to learn to work together as a team and prepare a meal for us. And we do that every single week. And as we go out and adventure on, and we do our different hikings and different things like that, we make sure that every time we go somewhere, we try different things, and we eat a lot of different game meats in our house. We eat like elk. Last night we ate ostrich. We eat venison. We eat deer. We try to eat a plethora of different things just to have all that in our taste buds. So now the girls will try anything. They may not like it, but they are willing to try. And I also think, like, not just in the relation to food, but you have to be willing to try something.
Right.
And that's anything in life, because if you don't try, you won't get anywhere. And you have to be okay to fail, because if you don't fail, then you won't know what it's like when you actually succeed. And you need to be able to have the ups and downs, and you can't live in fear. You won't succeed if you live in fear. And
That's
so
right.
that naturally helped us with the girls being willing to try anything that was put in front of their face when we were there. Although we didn't like
Well, I will tell you as a parent who has raised 6 kids, all of whom were taught to cook beside me. Your big birthday present when you turned 4 was you got to come to the kitchen and learn to scramble your own eggs. And
nice.
all 6 of my kids cook and cook well. And as an adult now with adult children, that comes back to bless you. And it really does make a
That's
tremendous
exciting.
amount of difference. And so I'm really proud of you for doing that. And I'm proud of you girls for being willing to step up and do those kinds of things. So, ladies, answer for me. What's now I'm curious. So, this is going to come back around to the Brazil trip in a different way, but what's your favorite thing to eat? Kenzie?
I don't really know, but I do really like to eat things like gnocchi a lot. I really love that. I like also making my own pasta, and I make my own gnocchi as well, and I like to eat whatever my mom puts in front of me, so I can't choose except gnocchi.
There you go. Well, that's good. How about you, Emma? What is your favorite?
Personally, I think Alfredo would be my favorite, or well, I can still my mac and cheese is my favorite. Favorite, sorry. Um, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, some things I like, and other things I don't. But it's more of like even maybe Alfredo would be one of my favorites.
She loves it.
So, ladies, what was the favorite food that you tried in Brazil?
I really did like their sushi, but what
I don't
was
know.
it again?
It's like
What'd you like? What was your favorite?
I don't know. I'm usually not a sushi fan, and this was the very first one of my second time that I had good sushi, so I just say sushi.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. That's
What was
pretty
your
brave.
favorite?
I think that's pretty awesome.
It was
Baking or
amazing.
baking?
Or did you like the SIE?
Oh, the SAE is
Yeah, the SIE.
We loved it.
They have these like little like stands on the side of the road.
And the
Cheers.
food.
Here, I think a lot of us call it like acai bowls. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
but
Mhm.
it's called SIE.
Mhm.
And they have all the different local fruits on top. And so it's just like a giant fruit bowl essentially, but it's just like creamed in the bottom, and it has like a ton of fruit, and they have
It's
a lot of
amazing.
those on the side of the road.
Well, I'm really proud of your mom for teaching y'all to cook because that's a life skill that goes well beyond just being home educated. It's a skill you'll take into adulthood. And my youngest daughter is a semi-professional wedding cake maker now because she learned to cook alongside me. And the irony of it is, unless it's sourdough bread, I don't like to bake, but boy, can she bake. And that was something that she found that was a hobby that started as a teenager and it's followed her into adulthood. So I think that's really important. Ladies, I have a couple more questions for you. I want you to think about this one for a second. What was the best part of this big adventure that you all had with your parents?
I have it already.
What is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Say
Cunha.
again.
Cunha.
Cunha. Cunha was the best part.
Was there a particular moment?
Making like looking at the stars at night and then cooking with her.
Cooking
It
with
was
her.
awesome.
Cooking with her. How terrific is that? If you all have any pictures that we could share in the show notes, that would be just amazing. How about you, Emma? What was the best part for you?
I don't know. It was actually I'm Cunha too, but just to say, it's been a while since I've seen Mercedes, my friend, and we had fun together in the pool sometimes. Or also Cunha. I think also cooking with her was fabulous, actually, and I think his name is Marcella. Marcella's food was delicious today.
Oh yeah.
So Marcelo, I should tell you the story with him. It's amazing. So one of the other nights, our grandma and grandpa said, "Where are you going to go for dinner?" And we said, "Oh, we don't know, because there's not a lot of places to go. And the places that you do eat are kind of like people's homes there in the mountains."
Sure.
And they said, "Oh, I have the place for you. Let me see if he's open tonight." and he wasn't open. And he says, "Let me see if he'd be willing to cook a meal for you guys." And so we had stopped there for lunch on our way in on the first time. And so he had met us because we were not properly dressed. It was our way in when we first were arriving into town. And we didn't speak their language, and we couldn't find anyone that spoke English in the restaurant. So we were very memorable. It's funny because some of the people said it was the first time they were meeting Americans. So it was we weren't easy to forget. And so he called him and told us about our family and said, "Would you be willing to prepare a meal for them?" So he got back to us and he says, "I have wonderful news. They're going to prepare a private meal for you guys." And
Oh
so
my goodness.
arrive at 6 o'clock. So we get there at 6. The restaurant is set beautiful, the lighting and the mood. And we sit at the table and they translated in English the menu, and it said at the top, "Dawson's family dinner." And then it had all the different courses of what they were making translated in English. And his son was our server, and he did the chef, which is a Michelin chef, did all the cooking by himself. We were there for like 3 or 4 hours because he did everything from scratch, everything himself. And every time he'd come out and serve it, he'd stand there and watch us all take a bite. And every time we'd ooh and ah because everything was like the best food we ever had in our life. Every time we'd say something, because we couldn't speak their language and they couldn't speak ours. Every time he saw us going, how good it was, he would just start dancing. Yay! He was all so happy. And then we drank wine, and then we had a glass of wine with them, and we all just like laughed and hugged, and like it was like the best night, the best meal ever. And then we all walked outside, and of course, with the language barrier and all, we were all just so happy, so full. And we all just started hugging each other. And of course, there's no light pollution there, it's in the mountains.
Sure.
We all stood up at the stars and we were all just looking at the stars. And it was just like a really special moment that we were treated like this. And we've stayed in touch with our hosts, Alberto and Fatima, and they still call us to this day, and we do video calls. And one day he called us, and he was at the restaurant with the chef, and the chef's in the background, and the girls had wrote in their book, and we took a bunch of pictures together. And he's can't speak our language, but he's holding the book up and he's pointing, "This is the girl's letter." And it was just like a really special moment that I don't think we'll ever experience again, a private meal like that. It was
You know
really
what I think is
special.
really special here, and I think this is an important takeaway for folks who will watch this video, is that language doesn't need to be a barrier.
It doesn't.
Sometimes we make the misapprehension that if we can't speak the language, we can't enter into fellowship, and that's not really true at all. And I think that's
Yeah.
really important. But now you did tell me when we talked in preparation for this, you told me a story about being very careful to be out in public, not to have your phones out. And of course, when we met in March, my first thought was, oh, yeah, I could go to Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese, but my phone, my Google Translate could do that for
Can't
me.
use it.
But you can't do that. So can you explain for our audience why that's not a good idea?
It's very, very poor. It's a third world country. That was the other side of it that I wanted the girls to see. I wanted them to know this is why we work really hard. This is why this is why mommy tries to teach you that even though I'm a working mom, even though I work multiple jobs and I wear multiple hats, it's at the end of the day so that we could work hard to live in America and live the way we do. And that if you don't work hard, you can end up like the people that we passed. They have things called favelas there, which are basically little shacks all over, and it's very, 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 very poor. The short story of the favelas is years and years and years ago, Brazil went to war, and when they went to war, they promised that all the fighters that were fighting, that the army they would be able to come back and they would provide housing for them. So they fought to defend their country, came back when the war was over, and they didn't have housing for them. And they had no money, nowhere to go. So they started grabbing anything and everything that they could to build these favelas. So they don't have running water, they don't have electricity. Over in Brazil, concrete is cheaper than any other building material, which is not the case in America. So everything is basically built out of strong concrete. And all over when you drive through, you see these favelas. But the way that it's set up in true Brazil, not a tourist area, is the outside of any building or any home or like their private school is got big cement block walls, and everything looks like a shack, and everything looks like it's run down, it's dangerous, but you don't know if it's just like kind of like the quote unquote hood dangerous area behind it, or if it's like a really rich person behind it, because you can't tell
Mm,
from the outside. And so because of that, you can't just pull over to the side of the road if you need to use the restroom, pull over to eat. Luckily, we have a friend that lives in Brazil. And so anytime we needed to use the restroom, we would message him and ask him, send us the point where we could stop to use the bathroom, because otherwise you could be pulling over, and the reason they would take your phone is they don't necessarily just want to take the phone to sell the phone, because a lot of times phones can be locked. They want the phone to break it down to sell it for parts. and
wow.
and that's just because they're very, very, very poor. And so I didn't bring any jewelry, I didn't bring a phone, I didn't bring a purse. My husband carried everything, and he has the little thing that you hide under your under your shirt that held
Sure.
anything. And he's 6'2", and he's a taller guy, and so he's probably not one that someone would want to mess with, so we were blessed in that aspect. And so he carried everything, and so it was a little difficult because when we traveled to Europe, we would just pull out our phone and we would use Google Translator, and we'd be at the restaurant and we'd translate and take pictures. And we didn't have that luxury in Brazil because we were in the real areas of the real residential area. Now, Brazil, even though it doesn't seem that way on the globe, is larger than America, or United States, rather, I should say, specify. So that just to put it in perspective, I know a lot of it is the Amazon, but Brazil is very, very, very large, and we went through what you would call 3 states.
Wow.
So, we didn't get to
Okay.
see all of Brazil because it would take many, many, many months to do,
Sure.
but we did see a large pocket of it. And one reason that we felt so welcome and safe, and fell in love with Cunha, is because they don't build favelas in Cunha in the mountains because it's too cold and they would
Too
freeze to
cold.
death.
Interesting.
So when you go there, it's very lots of land and little houses and farmers, and it's very safe, and it's very different from the other parts in the beach towns and the other areas that you would drive through. But like their school, they have like guards, and everything is blocked in and everything is protected for, so we knew like once they were beyond, we knew that they were protected and safe.
So, girls, tell me a little bit about the week that you spent in a Brazilian school. Were both of you in the same classroom, or were you, because you're not the same age? So,
Yes. The reason is Mercedes, her friend, has two brothers, and one is in fourth grade. His name is Max, and he's in the grade that just shows like
Well, it teaches them Portuguese, sorry,
Portuguese and
English, that kind of
So
stuff.
yeah, so we were in the same thing. We shared a backpack and a lunch, but we also were like in the classroom like together because it was teaching you like Portuguese so that it was better for Max too. So we were just together for the whole thing.
Yeah, and why is because I can't speak as much Portuguese as Mercedes, and sixth grade level is much harder and a little bit more complex than the fourth grader, so or like fourth
Fourth or
grade.
fifth.
Yes, fourth, fifth. So I had to go in fourth grade again, and technically I'd be like, why? It's like I want to be with my friend Mercedes. I'm in a fourth grader class. Please let me out. It's kind of like that, but I didn't speak any language. I'm like,
They do too much writing in the middle school. And so
mm,
they thought that it would be better. Originally, it was 4th and 6th grade is what they were putting them in when we sent
mhm.
in our documents. But they got back to us and they said they decided that they wanted to put them both in 4th grade because 6th grade does a lot of writing, and you can't write Portuguese if you can't fluently speak Portuguese.
Right.
And they thought that if
Sure.
they had trouble with language barriers, that they could rely on each other. And
Yeah.
so they decided it would be better if they were put in the same class. And then in that class was one of the little boys, our friend's son. And so they thought if anything, the kids could at least communicate with him because he's bilingual.
I
And
was going to
so,
ask if he was bilingual.
yeah,
So,
and so
Learning.
He's
and so yeah, he's actually learning more Portuguese than he is English. But in that class they learn Portuguese plus they learn English. And so they thought the girls would benefit more because they do more of a focus on learning Portuguese.
Yeah, I enjoyed the English one even though I'm speaking.
Yeah, the English person, he actually was bilingual too.
Yeah, he
The guy that teaches English.
And Portuguese. So if we like had a question at lunch, he was always like right there. So we could go up to him and ask. And we actually did ask him questions, but one of them was I asked him, which one's easier? Which one do you like better, Portuguese or English? He says English. I really
really?
like English. Then a kid comes up and asks him a question in Portuguese, and he's like, so he explains it and talks to the boy, and then he says, "See, I like English better."
Oh,
Yeah,
so how long was your school day? How long were you there?
What is this? It's like what, 6 hours?
like-
Or 5 or 6 hours?
yeah.
So that's the other thing. So Brazil is very poor.
Which
So they have to share even though this is a private school. This is a lot, at least all the schools we ever saw, even the public ones, they share the same buildings, so they can share the same teachers and they can share the same desk and they can share the same materials and everything. And so
So
they
like
would
you might
do,
have one cohort in the morning and a different cohort in the afternoon?
yeah, so it's middle school and high school goes from like I want to say it was like 8 to it was like I don't know, it was like 8
No,
to
it's
1 or
six.
6 to 1, whatever it was, and then they have lunch and then they switch, and then like the younger children are like from like 1 to 5. And so it's
Wow.
like
Okay.
all day ordeal, which was different for me. Well, really different because
Wow.
of homeschool, but it was a all day ordeal because
Sure, but think about the responsibility those teachers have.
and
They have to
shift.
put on a different
Mhm.
hat
Yeah.
to switch amongst kids too. Wow, what a mental shift. I'm going to ask each of you to tell me what your closing thoughts would be. What would you like ladies, particularly boys and girls at your age, young men and women, what would you like them to take away from our conversation and remember as they look forward to their futures? What do you want them to know? Kenzie,
Wanna
I
go
see you
first?
thinking hard.
Trying to think.
I can go first.
Yes.
You want me to go first? My takeaway would be if you are a parent of children and you're trying to watch this video to gauge if this is something you'd want to do, I would encourage them to just know that this is the time to be hands-on with your children right now. And that we were talking before the show started about the book, what was it, by
The
John,
Anxious
Anxious
Generation
Generation.
by Jonathan Haidt.
Yes.
Yes.
The kids are growing up with depression and anxiety, and there's a lot of mental health issues going on in this world. And we have a rule: no technology Monday through Friday, unless it's Friday night through the weekend. And guess what? Usually on Saturday we're hiking with no service, so we really have a limited amount of time to be able to use any technology in our home, unless it's school related or they're writing a book because they like writing books. That's it. And my takeaway is this is the time. So whether it's local or international world schooling, you need to be hands-on. Bring them into the kitchen, bring them into the conversations. Let them talk to adults. Let them be able to hold a conversation with an adult. People, no matter where they are in the world, are more welcoming than you would anticipate. And if you are wondering if you could do stuff, you can email places and different places overseas. If you're going to go overseas, even if you're going to go local, you can email them and use a translator online to email with questions. And you'd be surprised. You could find another place that's willing to put them in a school for a week. You can find places that are willing to house you. You can find private guides to point you to the right bathrooms. I mean, you can do things, all that legwork behind the scenes, to make sure your children are involved. So we're not, as we've talked about in conversations before, so we're not growing up a generation of marshmallows. They need to be able to know that there's bad people in the world, and they need to be able to know, don't pull your phone up. They need to be aware of their surroundings. So my takeaway for people is it involve your children, because now is the only time you have before it's too late.
That's right. Well, I can tell you they grow up way too quickly.
Yeah,
I'm looking at these two, and you guys are half a head taller than 6 months ago when I met you. So your mom needs to put a brick on your heads so you don't grow up so quickly. So Emma, what are you thinking?
Yeah, we're feeding them too much. I'll have to stop feeding them, but you know, I will stop feeding them. We were all joking. The worst food we ate there was chicken hearts.
Okay.
They eat chicken hearts on sticks.
Yeah, I was going to say they put them on skewers. Yes.
Everything's on a skewer.
Yeah,
Bread, cheese, meat, everything's on the skewer, and it goes on the grill. No seasoning. They don't do any seasoning.
Yeah, the joke is when you eat a chicken heart, it gives you an extra heart.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, like, maybe this isn't exactly what the question is, but maybe sometimes when kids are actually like exploring stuff, they should probably look around their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like some people are like sitting on their phones, they're like, hey, what's up? It's like I'm in a totally different country. It's like, what did you see so far? I'm like, I've seen nothing. I'm like,
Right.
there's like parrots out there, like literally looking at monkeys, like staring at you. Like,
She's just talking about you should really see your surroundings.
Sure.
Everyone's at their phones. If you go out to a table and at a restaurant, everybody's at the phone instead of speaking.
that happened once. There was these like group of kids
Yep.
who were like seeing the phone, were like, or chatting with like the waitresses and that kind of stuff. They're all staring at the phones and like,
Yep, everybody's just at the phone. They're not involved anymore. What's your takeaway?
For people to stop eating certain fruits.
oh,
To stop eating certain foods?
okay.
I mean, like
McDonald's?
Yeah, like
Oh, she wants people to eat healthier.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
but it's
like-
not like some people eat it. You can eat it every once in a
I know.
while. It's not a bad thing. You just shouldn't eat it that much.
People who like McDonald's, no offense, but like, not McDonald's, but it's okay.
Everything should be in moderation. That's the key.
Sure.
Even if you like something healthy, you shouldn't eat it a whole bunch because it turns out not to be
It's not
healthier.
No,
So you just should eat everything moderate.
including mac and cheese when I was younger. Oof.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but neither one of you are going to tell me you'd never eat Alfredo or mac and cheese again. So
Never, right?
Never.
never. Well, I want to thank the three of you all for joining me today. I want to thank you for sharing your experience. We are going to have the privilege of having a guest next month who actually I probably should check the date here. Her name is Andy Almond, and she wrote a book about taking her children. It's called The Everywhere Classroom. She went to all 7 continents with her children. So the logistics of what you all planned magnified across 6 more continents is pretty amazing. And I wanted to have this conversation with you guys first because I had met you. I had fallen in love with both of you girls, and I knew that you would have a terrific tale to tell. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
So much.
And now when you get back from St. Lucia, we'll talk again because that would be awesome.
There you
All right.
go. Hopefully in the next year or 2 we can pull it off.
And I just hope
There you go. Well, thank you all so much for allowing us to come into your home this afternoon and share this time with you all. And we don't take it lightly. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. It was terrific. Sarah, girls, take care, everyone. We
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Amen.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thanks again for joining us. We're glad to be a part of your educational community. You can help us grow our community even more by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show wherever you may be hearing this. Don't forget that you can access the show notes and watch a recording at demilearning.com/show, or on our YouTube channel. We'll see you again next time. Until then, keep building strong foundations for lifelong learning.